Hello everyone, this is Dr. K. Jagannayaki, Professor in MBA Department, Institute of Aeronautical Engineering, Hyderabad. Today I want to discuss about elasticity of demand. So the key points, whatever I am going to cover in today's session, so after going through this topic, the learner will be able to understand the meaning and definition of elasticity of demand, various types of elasticity of demand, and what are the categories of elasticity of demand and factors that influence elasticity of demand. So first, coming to the introduction to elasticity of demand, how flexible are you about items you buy? Are there some purchases that you consider special without substitute and that you are willing to make regardless of price, and other purchases that you are willing to go without or swap for others when prices go up? So economists call this kind of phenomena as elasticity of demand. It shows the relationship between the demand for a product and some other factor. So most oftenly we used to consider price. So understanding this relationship and how it affects the buying behavior of a consumer can help a business make smarter and making decisions related to the marketing that increase sales. So elasticity of demand, it refers to the shift in demand for an item or service when a change occurs in one of the variables that buyers consider as part of their purchase decisions. Its relationship between demand and another variable such as price, availability of substitutes, advertising pressure, and customer income. So in previous sessions we discussed about the demand determinants. So what are the factors that influence buyers' purchasing decisions? So price, income, price of available goods, it means substitute goods, future prices, taste and preferences, etc. So all these factors that influence buyers' buying decisions. So if any one of these factors leads to a small change, it's have its impact on the quantity demanded. So elasticity of demand is that it is the relationship between quantity demanded to other variable of demand determinants. So when a change in any one of those variables causes a significant alteration or change in demand for a product or service, it is elasticity of demand is considered high. So how far we can able to stretch that depends upon the elasticity means expansion in terms of the sales, maximization of sales that is due to any of the changes in the any of the factor of the demand determinant. So in other words, elasticity shows that a customer's buying behavior is highly flexible or stretchy, like an elastic waistband. So if you take example of waistband, how much strength you are going to apply, based on that it will be stretchable. So the more willing customers are to change pursuing decisions, the more elastic a product or service is. If a customer is willing to buy a different brand of coffee simply because it's on sale that week, or completely forgo buying coffee because its price has gone up, coffee can be said to have elastic demand. So let us see this graph. So in this graph, when the price is P1, the price is high. So see the change, the quantity demanded will be less. When price decreases by P2, the quantity demanded increases. So that kind of relationship between the price and quantity demanded. So elasticity of demand describes the potential for variation in demand for a product or service arising from changes in price, the customer income levels, advertising, and other related factors. So many factors influence elasticity, availability of substitutes, price changes, necessity, brand loyalty, and urgency. So, understanding elasticity of demand can help guide a business marketing and selling strategies to maximize profits. So, for companies, if they want to maximize their sales and they want to maximize their profitability, it is mandatory to understand the elasticity of demand towards their products and services. What exactly the customers they are expecting from the company. So that kind of analysis should be done by the company so as to maximize their profitability. So executing tactics to influence demand requires keen market insight and robust data for analysis. So if they want to do that kind of analysis, they need to have complete understanding about the market, what is happening in the market. So they should go with environmental analysis along with perfect information about the customers. Then only it is possible to assess the elasticity of demand, what kind of demand they have in the coming future. Then the next one is inelasticity of demand. So in contrast, if you are talking about elasticity and inelasticity of demand, products that are inelastic do not experience large shifts in demand due to changes in their purchase consideration variables. So, in case of inelastic demand, as we cannot find much changes in any of the demand determinants, there should not be much variation in the elasticity. So, they do not have any kind of change in the existing demand. So, that is known as inelastic demand. So, customers remain rigid or firm in their buying choices for certain products and are unwilling or unable to be flexible. So, for example, if you take examples of tobacco products and utilities are classic examples of inelasticity demand because most times a change in price of increase in advertising won't significantly influence consumer demand. So certain products, whatever may be the changes you are going to make, especially when you are talking about changes in terms of the promotional activities by way of rigorous advertisement that do not influence the consumer's buying behavior. Then coming to the four types of elasticity. So basically we have four types of elasticity based on the investigating variable, price elasticity, income elasticity, cross elasticity of demand, advertising elasticity of demand. So the formulas for calculating each type of elasticity can be used for scenario planning or retrospective analysis. Coming to the first type of elasticity of demand, that is price. So the proportionate change in the quantity demanded of a commodity due to a proportionate change in the price of the commodity. So that relative change, which is known as price elasticity of demand. When customers are highly sensitive to changes in price, there is a high price elasticity of demand. It means that if inflation causes prices to increase, customers will reduce the quantity they purchase by switching, substituting, or skipping. So it can also indicate conversely the price reductions may spur additional sales. The formula to calculate price elasticity of demand is the percentage change in quantity to that of the percentage change in price. So, which can be expressed in terms of this equation Q2 minus Q1 by Q1 divided by P2 minus P1 by P1. So, whereas Q1 is the old quantity of demand, Q2 new quantity of demand, P1 represents initial price and P2 indicated as new price. The next cross elasticity of demand. So cross elasticity happens when changes in the price of one product prompt changes in demand for another. The two products must be related either as complements or substitutes for each other. When products are substitute for each other, a rise in the price of one will usually cause a rise in demand for the other. So again, it depends whether they are complementary or substitute goods. So that type of elasticity of demand is known as cross elasticity of demand. For example, if coffee prices rise, then demand for breakfast tea is likely to increase as customers substitute tea for coffee. When two products are complementary, a rise in the price of one will usually cause a decrease in the demand for the other. For example, if you take again coffee as the best example, if coffee prices rise, the demand for coffee creamer will likely decline as people drink less coffee. So cross elasticity of demand does not apply to unrelated products such as airline tickets and orange. There is no relation between these two. So the formula for cross elasticity of demand is percentage change in quantity for product A to that of percentage change in price for product B. The next type of elasticity of demand is known as income elasticity of demand. So due to income changes, the consumer purchasing decisions also it may vary from one consumer to another consumer. So which is denoted as YAD with a Y because that's the notion economists use for income. It is the relationship between demand and a customer's income. As income decreases, the quantity demand tend to decline, even if all other factors remain the same, including price. And the income elasticity of demand tends to differ according to the priority of a product, meaning that what economists refer to as normal goods. So what type of good it is, whether it is a normal good or luxury good. So normal goods like the basic amenities like food, cloth and other necessities are likely to be prioritized over luxury goods when customers' income declines. So based on your income, if income increase, the demand quantity demanded will increase. If income decreases, the quantity demanded will also decrease. So this is a direct relationship between income and quantity demanded. Then spending on normal goods is more likely to increase first when income increases, and increase of luxury goods happens on a lag. So initially whenever there is an increase in your current income, so based on that we'll make more purchases on normal goods and then we'll prioritize, especially when you are thinking about luxury goods. So that should be done by taking some gap. So the formula for income elasticity of demand is it is the ratio of percentage change in quantity to that of percentage change in income. Where Q1 initial quantity of demand, Q2 new quantity of demand, Y1 initial income and Y2 indicates new income. The next category is advertising elasticity of demand. So this type of elasticity focuses on the relationship between customer demand and a seller's advertising. So initially whenever you want to maximize your sales, first we need to create some kind of awareness about our goods and services. So for that we need to have some kind of advertisement. So it's a measure of advertising effectiveness that assesses whether increases in advertising elevate customers' impression to the point where they respond by buying more. So based on the advertisements, sometimes customers they might be impressed with your product and service, accordingly they will make purchases. The formula for AED is the percentage change in quantity to that of the percentage change in advertising. Then what are the 5 categories of elasticity of demand? So economists describe elasticity as a spectrum of customer sensitivity, calibrated into 5 categories using relative and perfect to describe the level of elasticity. So any products or services elasticity lands in one of the 5 categories based on the values produced by the formula, which is which we have discussed related to price elasticity, income elasticity, cross elasticity, and advertising elasticity of demand. So accordingly, we can have different types of demand curves. So because the formulas are independent of each other, even when applied to the same product, the different types of elasticity like price, cross, income and advertising may end up in different categories for the same product or same service. So elastic demand versus inelastic demand versus unitary elasticity. The coefficient of elasticity of demand, it always ranges between plus or minus 1. So the elasticity of demand spectrum starts at the left with perfectly inelastic demand and ends at the right with perfectly elastic demand and has unitary elasticity at its theoretical center. For example, income elasticity requires additional dimensions to visualize because different curves apply to people at different income levels. So as a result, we may get different types of demand curves based on the income level differences. Then the first one, perfectly inelastic demand, is when demand does not change regardless of changes in other factors. Products that are considered a necessity with no substitute are in this zone, such as essential goods and life-saving drugs. So perfectly inelastic demand has a PED of price elasticity demand of 0. Then we used to say perfectly inelastic demand. Then second type is relatively inelastic demand, which means that it takes large change in a factor such as price to cause a small change in demand. Gasoline and salt, these are common examples of relatively inelastic products. So relatively inelastic demand has a PED of less than 1. So whatever may be the changes in terms of any of the factor, like if you take price, because they are commonly used by everyone, so we should not have much difference in terms of these kind of products. So that is the reason whatever change took place because of the changes in terms of price, it is very low. So that is the reason in this case the coefficient of relatively inelastic demand is always less than 1. The next one is unitary elastic demand. This is a special case that arises when the impact on demand is an equal 1-for-1 change compared with another factor. For example, a 10% increase in price causes a 10% decrease in demand quantity. The proportionate ratio is same. There is no change. So then it is said to be unitary elastic demand. So this demand is mostly a hypothetical concept as it is unusual to find a product with such perfect correlation. So unitary elastic demand has a PED of exactly 1. Then comes relatively elastic demand. It means that a small change in one factor creates a disproportionately larger change in demand. For example, if a 5% increase in the price of a streaming service caused by a 10% decrease in subscribers, so it would be considered relatively elastic. Most products and services fall into this zone. Relatively inelastic demand has a PED greater than 1 and higher values indicate greater elasticity. Then coming to the graphical representation of the law of demand. The law of demand is usually represented as a graph. The graphical representation of law of demand is a curve that establishes relationship between quantity demanded and the price of a good. So this why we are talking about means, so whatever changes that took place, any one of these demand determinants that shows its impact on the overall quantity demanded. So that is the reason we used to have different types of demand curves. Then comes perfectly elastic demand. It is the extreme scenario where demand drops 100% due to changes in one of the factors. This is relatively rare since characteristics like accessibility, brand loyalty, and quality will often cause some customers to continue to purchase product. As an example, the price of organic bananas goes up at Fred supermarket but not at Barney's grocery. And a perfect elasticity of demand, no shoppers would purchase the bananas at Fred's. However, some customers might decide to pay the higher price to save time and effort, especially if they believe Fred's produce is fresh. The result of the PED calculation for perfect elasticity is infinity, which means unlimited. So representing the all or nothing buying decision. So it depends. So based on the individual perception, people may select any of the place to buy organic bananas. Then what determines elasticity of demand? So elasticity of demand is influenced by several factors to which customers respond with differing levels of intensity. So the first one is availability of substitutes. So when customers perceive that a product lacks significant differentiation or is easily substituted, the product tends to have higher elasticity of demand. This means customers will easily swap one brand for another or one product for another. A good example is the plethora of breakfast cereal substitutes, from swapping flakes for oats to switching to granola bars. So the opposite also holds true. Products that have no substitute, such as gasoline, are highly inelastic. So some products may have substitutes that may available in the market, and few products they may not have any substitutes. So based on the availability of substitutes, the elasticity of demand also determined. Then second one is urgency of purchase. When customers are not in a rush to make a purchase, they can put it off if prices are increasing. This means that there is a higher elasticity of demand for optional or discretionary purchases. Conversely, when a purchase is urgent, such as plumbing services for a leaky pipe, customers are more willing to pay a higher price in return for quicker service. Their viewpoint is inelastic. So based on the urgency of purchase also, we can see some kind of differences in terms of elasticity of demand. Then comes duration of price change. Customers react differently to price changes that are expected to last a short period of time versus long-term shift. So flash sales that are perceived to be short-term can cause greater increase in demand than discounts that are expected to be around longer. So consider the changes in demand around Black Friday or Cyber Monday. So even the duration of price change will also make influence on buyers' buying decisions. Then comes percentage of income. So purchases that represent a higher percentage of a household budget tend to be more elastic than those that are smaller. For example, customers demonstrate a higher level of price elasticity when buying clothing than when purchasing computer paper. the same percentage of change in price would cause a greater change in demand for sweaters than for paper because sweaters are bigger ticket item relative to the customer's income. Then comes necessity, the essential and inessential nature of goods. It depends on the priority, which is a primary driver of elasticity. Customer tends to have unchanging levels of demand for products they consider essential. Customers will be rigid when purchasing products considered indispensable for survival or quality of life. So it depends on their need and importance. Based on that, they will prefer few items. If they feel that it is not essential at the moment, they will postpone their purchasing decisions for the later. Conversely, buying habits tend to be more elastic for luxury goods. So this dynamic occurs in part because purchasing necessities cannot be postponed. Addictive products such as alcohol, tobacco, drugs are an extreme variation of inelasticity caused by necessity. Then brand loyalty. When customers have a high level of brand loyalty, they are less likely to swap brands, resulting in a higher level of inelasticity demand. So this kind of change it took place when substitutes are perceived to be of inferior quality or a poor match. So customers are willing to pay a little more rather than reduce their demand. So marketers focus on these characteristics when positioning their products. So items seen as commodities where one brand is the same as the next and have a higher level of elasticity of demand and therefore their sales fluctuate more significantly with price. So it depends on the brand image, what a particular company have in the market. Based on that, it influences the quantity demanded. Then comes buyer. So the other people's money concept, it shows the same product may be susceptible to different levels of price elasticity depending on who pays for the goods. So customers tend to be more willing to pay higher prices when they aren't the one actually paying for the product, such as for company reimbursed travel and entertainment. Then coming to the example of elasticity of demand. So the following concept illustrates elasticity of demand using price elasticity because it is the most common example and we can generally based on the changes in price only we used to go with quantity demanded. So KMR Incorporation is in the online retail shoe business. In 2021, KMR sold 1500 pairs of snowboards at an average price of $100 per pair. During 2022, KMR lowered the price to $90 and sold 1800 pairs. In both years, KMR's cost of goods sold was $40. The price elasticity of demand can be calculated as PED is equal to percentage change in quantity to that of percentage change in price. So its price elasticity of demand is 2 rupees. So the calculation above indicates that the snow boots are relatively elastic since the change in volume exceeds the change in price. So the volume sold increased by 300 pairs, 20%, when the price dropped by $10, 10%. Whether this change was beneficial for KMR's business is subject to interpretation. So in this case, the price change increased volume and helped KMR increase total snowboard revenue from $150,000 to $162,000, an increase in $12,000, almost 8% increase. However, KMR's gross profit remained the same. So in 2021, it is $90,000 and 2022, $90,000. Of course, a large volume business may bring along other additional cost of operations beyond the cost of goods sold. So this is one of the best example for elasticity of demand. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.